Welcome to my daily review. Today is Wednesday, April 23, and you can see that the Nasdaq had another good day, a follow-through day. You could see the volume was much higher today, so you had a follow-through day added on to yesterday's follow-through day. So this is constructive action for the index. The Nasdaq was up 407 points or 2.5%. You can see the volume, as I mentioned earlier, is 3% above the average 50. And this has been a while since we've had, strong volume like this. We had the big, volume near the lows here, and then it's kind of tapered off. But now it's coming back. So today, probably saw a little bit of short covering as well as some institutional support. But I was encouraged with today's action. A lot of people were disappointed because of, it opened up real strong, gapped higher than sold off. But to me, you got to look at the overall picture. I'm encouraged, but still a little skeptical here. You see the low on April 7th was 14,784. And then the high here, the day, the range for those couple of days there was 17,202. So what I need to see, I had a lot of people asking me, like, what do you need to see to become more bullish? I need to see the index trade above the 17,202 and stay above there. Today, the high was 17,029. So it's getting close, but I also need to see it trade and close above the this magenta line here. This is the 21. It traded above it today, but closed below it. So that's kind of the disappointing part. I'm very encouraged, but that is a little disappointing, I got to admit. Closed near the lows of the session, which the low was 16,642 and it closed at 16,708. So just a little bit off the lows. And below the 21, you can see there it's just a tick below the 21. So it won't take much for it to trade above there and even an inside day tomorrow and close above that 21. And if it can do that for three sessions, then I'll become way more bullish. And if it can trade above that 17,202, I think it's step on the gas here, at least, until it trades up to that 50, which is 17,828. So that's still, a long ways away. You're looking at 1,200 points there, and maybe it can get through the 50 and trade to the 200. Even if it just does that and then gets rejected there, that relief rally would just help, psychologically with people who are, there's a lot of technical damage that's been done here. Let's face it. And these legs down here, a lot of technical damage in the index and a lot of technical damage in the stock. So just a lot of damage when you go from, 20,204 to 14,784. That's 27% move. There's a lot of triage work that needs to be done. So it's going to take a while to recover. And what I look for is leadership. And I'm going to get there in a minute. But I did want to show the SPY today and a couple of the other indexes here. SPY had a follow through day yesterday and today as well, but closed again below the 21. Not the end of the world. It traded above it, just closed. A tick below it, but tomorrow's another day and next week and next month, and I think earnings season is helping. I'm going to get to that in a minute. I have this on the 5 EMA. I have to switch this because I was looking at strong stocks, which I'll get to in a minute. I'm just looking at stocks above their five. Anyway, that's the SPY, the IWM. This one had a follow through day, and this one closed just a tick below the 21 as well. So, we have work to do, folks. You're not going to rebuild everything in 2 days. Here's the Dow Jones. This one closed 1.4% below the 21, and I got to look at the RSP because the RSP was not as strong as the SPY. So that tells us, that the Teslas and the Nvidias and the Apple were driving the S&P and not the other 493 stocks. But this one closed just a tick below the 21 as well. So it's something that I'm watching for. And the Nasdaq is where most of the growth stocks are, up 2.5%. So you can expect your growth stocks to be up 4, 5, 6%, right? But what I'm looking for more is leadership. We're not going to have a sustained rally without some stocks showing leadership. And I want to go back to 2009 when we were getting out of this financial crisis. It was on March 10th, I believe, when Mark Haynes had called that bottom on live TV right to the tick, like that feels like the bottom there at 1265 there on the Nasdaq. And sure, we started rallying, but it was below its 200, it rallied through the 50, but still below the 200, a month and a half later, towards the end of April. But we saw stocks rallying ahead. Here you go. There's Netflix, and on March 10th, this thing was already making new highs. Where's March 10th? Yeah, this thing was making new highs at 39.87, taking out the old highs. So leading stocks will, front run the index. And so that's what I'm looking for now is these leading stocks. And Netflix is one of them. That's one of the stocks that I'm looking for. We're not going to have a sustained rally without more stocks like Netflix in 2009. And ironically, Netflix this week is showing strength. And I'm looking for it in some of the, cryptocurrency names like MicroStrategy and Robinhood and Uber possibly, or Intuitive Surgical, or some of software names like Palantir or CrowdStrike, but I'm not seeing it yet. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It's just we're not seeing that leadership from these stocks. Now, Netflix here broke out of the double bottom base. Had strong earnings on Friday. Monday had a nice move, but really powered higher yesterday, 5%. Today just had an inside day. So that's okay. It's not going to make new highs every day. But just gradually, trading higher. Netflix could certainly be a leader here of this new rally if, we're going to have a sustained rally. But I'm going to go back to some of the earnings reports, and I'm going to come back to this notion of leadership and where we're looking for it and certainly not finding it yet. But that doesn't mean it won't happen. All right, I have to get to the earnings reports. First of all, from last night and this morning, and then at the close, I'm going to go through some of tonight's earnings reports. This is Tesla, and Tesla was up on, pretty horrific numbers, but all this is telling me is that the market has clarity now. It was expecting the worst, and Tesla delivered some pretty bad stuff. But now the market knows, so it just gets a little bit of a relief rally, and that's very telling, not only for Tesla, but for me. I think earnings season's kind of going to go this way. As long as you're up front and you show clarity, even if you miss a little bit, I think Wall Street's going to give you some slack here. And so all they really want is clarity. Of course, they love to see a beat and raise quarter, but they have a lot of negativity priced in due to, the news from Washington, D.C. But Tesla was up 5% today on, pretty poor earnings report. Now, it still has, to me, this is not leadership at all. It's way below its 50 here, 8% below the 50 and 14% below this 200. Downtrending short-term moving averages, downtrending longer-term moving averages, not leadership material. But a good move for Tesla. And it looks like it's, made this bottom, and, going higher on bad news is certainly a welcome relief for Tesla shareholders. All right, Intuitive Surgical reported last night, and I mentioned on the video it was down like 25 bucks. I said that this is too strong a report to be down like that, but it rallied up today to its 200 and then got rejected, closed at 9% of the daily range, but it was still up, nearly 2%, where it was down like 5% last night. So here's your gap up at the open, and this is the problem with chasing stuff, gaps at the open. That's why I always say you got to wait 60 or 90 minutes, get some clarity on the day, right? So you're, an hour in, and where's 10:30 here, and you'd already sold off, right? It already made the high, made the low, and then continued lower. And a lot of stocks did that. I should show the Nasdaq. The indexes did this today, gapped higher, then sold off into the close. The SPY did the same thing, gap higher, sold off into the close. But like I said, it's okay. And they're not going to just fire up and go every day. Still a big mover today, up 1.5%. All right. Some other stocks reporting earnings was PEGA Systems. This one gapped up. Yeah, it made that high there of 93 and then sold off into the close at 88, but still had a nice day. If you're a PEGA shareholder, Pegasystem shareholder, you're up 29%. You're thinking, thank you very much. Above all the moving averages now. And in this market, we're not seeing a lot of that. So maybe this is part of the change in sentiment or change of personality for our stock market. You have to be flexible in the stock market. Your best ability is flexibility. Don't get discouraged and disappointed. I can't do this. I suck. The market's never going to, treat me well. You just have to stick with it. You have to stick with it, and you will be rewarded. Like I say, never give up. SAP is a German software name, and the software names are reporting some good quarters here. This one was rewarded nearly 8%. Above its moving averages there, it closed just a tick above its 50. You see the RS line heading through the moving average and has a blue dot there. So very good for SAP. And another one that reported this morning was GEV. This one is closed near the lows, very disappointing for the shareholders. But it had this, and I'm leery of all these stocks with this January 27th deep seek, just a bomb. They just dropped a bomb, and I think it's just going to be hard for this thing to make new highs. It was up 3% today, so no crying over that, but you want to see a little better action. AT&T reported, AT&T and Verizon just very little growth, but the stock was up 1%. It's been holding up as the market's been cratering. This thing's been holding up in there. I think it pays like a 7% yield here or 4%. It was 7 and then it's rallied up, so the yield is not as great. But VRT is another one of these January 27th bombs, where I got caught up in that, where I had VST and I think VRT, and they were big winners. And I fall in love with this beautiful cup with handle. And then look what happened to me, down 30% in a day. But thankfully, I survived the quarter being, flat on the quarter. But man, what a bomb. Anyway, today it was up nearly 9%. Another one of these stocks that gapped higher at the open just sold off all day. That's why you cannot chase stuff. Spikes in the morning are more for selling than buying. Do not chase. Just take your time. You don't have to jump in. Just watch, observe, and if it's doing this, you could either buy some puts or just leave it alone, go someplace else. It's below all of its moving averages, rejected at the 50 here. To me, this is why I'm not covering these stocks anymore because it's just a waste of my time. I'm not interested in that. I tell you, I'm looking for leadership. Baker Hughes, I just wanted to point this out. There in the oil stocks, fewer rigs. And this is a rig company, and they're just not going to do well under this environment. And the other one was Weatherford. Another example of how we rent stocks and don't marry them. Weatherford was a big winner for a long time here. You can see in 2022, 2023, and then towards the end of 2024, there last summer just fell out, and then a stage 4 decline. So you don't want to hold stocks while they're in that kind of decline. Down 7% on the new data point. All right. Okay, that's enough for last night's earnings, this morning's earnings. I want to get to the gold stocks because I see people dancing on their graves here. And I think it's a little too soon for that. These things are still showing leadership. It's a top performing group. Yeah, they've pulled back the last couple sessions. Like I say, you got to watch for like 3 sessions in a row. Gold was down about 1.5% today, and it's not going to go up every day. But stocks, trading above their 21 EMA are definitely ones to watch because there's not a lot of them. I've been posting every morning, relative strength tables at the bottom of my page at MC Stock Charts, and a lot of these gold stocks are showing up. This is Anglo Gold Ashanti. Yeah, it's still above 3% above its 21. It traded down there today and then bounced. I want to see what that looks like. Yeah, kind of gap down at the open, and yeah, some buyers come in. But one that I am watching is AEM. They report tomorrow, and this one pulled back to its 21 as well. Looks like it bounced, closed 83% of the daily range. So yeah, I wouldn't be giving up on these yet. There's your spike lower. I guess you can spike higher, you can spike lower, and then buyers came in. So yeah, I mean the opening tick was it was down to 113 and closed at 118. I just got to show, it was having trouble at 100 not that long ago, in February. Here you go in March, it's right around 100. Really had trouble with that 100 number. It got above it and then pulled back to 100. In fact, 94 undercut the 50 and just had this sharp rally for about 7 sessions in a row. And now it pulls back for a couple sessions. So I ask you, is that the end of the road for Agnico Eagle Mines? I don't think so. I think they're going to crush earnings with, gold being up so much. I don't see how they're going to miss. So I think these mining stocks with, even silver, and gold being up so high, the number one group, I think they're going to report strong earnings. That doesn't mean their stock's going to rip higher. I'm just saying that if it's above the 21, then, if you're holding this stock and it's above the 21, it's done nothing wrong. If you're looking to buy it, you got to wait for a bounce. And certainly you don't want to buy it ahead of earnings. Let them reveal their data points. But I wouldn't be dancing on these graves just yet. Another one of these Canadian miners going to report on May 8th. WPM pulled back to the 21 today, closed at 82% of its daily range. So gap lower, and then buyers came in right away here. So, supporting these stocks. Yeah, I know it's down 2.5%, and that's no fun, but it's been up a lot. So you got to expect some profit taking. So anyway, just pointing that out. A couple more here before I move on with this exercise. Harmony, another one. This is the leading, it's up 100 and something percent in the last, well, let's go here. 82% since, the last year, but in 2025, it's up 95% now. So you got this little fall off. It's not less than 100%, but it didn't even pull back to its 21 today, which is 1546. It traded down to 1560. So you'd call that a little kiss, a kiss of the, a smooch, one of those European kisses, you fake kiss on the cheek, and then trade higher, 83% of the daily range. So same deal here, gap down at the open and then trade up. Some buyers coming into the close there. So like I said, don't be dancing on the graves here. Just keep an open mind. If they crash through their moving averages, well, then, it's over. Like I said, eventually they're going to get them all, and these things will be, great shorts at one point, but I'm not saying that point is right now. I know a lot of people who are, very thrilled that gold is having troubles for 2 days. It goes down 2 days. Anyway, DRD, same thing. I'm going to move away from this because I told you earlier that I'm looking for leadership. We cannot have a sustained rally without leadership. And I was hoping that Uber would start showing some leadership here. Traded above its moving averages this morning. It looked like it was going to have a good day, and then it just fell out. Closed at 4% of its daily range there. You could see the gap higher at the open, just selling all day. That is not what I look for in leadership, is now it's below its 50. Yeah, so, what I want to see here is this green line and the magenta line trade through the 50 here. So it could still do it. In fact, I fully expect it to, as long as the market cooperates. But it's just going to take some time. You just got to be patient. And Uber is definitely one that I'm looking towards. Another one here is Bros. I believe Bros has the potential to be a leader. And I think it's just going to take some time. You can see the moving averages well below the 50. Yeah, it traded above what it's closed 2.4% above its 21, which is a positive, but it's still below the 50. It's got this double bottom base pattern that we're seeing in a lot of stocks right now. But definitely one to watch, and I'm looking for leadership. And you're thinking, gosh, what are you doing? Dutch Bros, it's below its 50. When you want to make money in stocks, you don't make it in a day or a week or a month or a year. You make it over time. And Starbucks, Starbucks did this for its shareholders for years and years and years and years. Yeah, it had trouble during the financial crisis, but my goodness, this thing went from, yeah, it's been a long time. I get it, but that's how you create wealth. From three to what was it at 126, and I think Dutch Bros is going to do something similar, maybe not this dramatic, but as they grow, I want to grow with them. So that's why I'm a Dutch Bros shareholder. But anyway, it is not showing leadership yet. You got to give these things time. I'm also looking for the software names to show some leadership. Palantir is certainly one that is showing potential to be a leader. I had the buy point today, I think at 98 or whatever, but to me, the 100 level is the magic number. It traded through it before, then undercut obviously with market weakness, and now it's rallied back through. And this one could be a market leader here. It's 11.5% above the 21, but the 21 now is still below the 50. The 10 traded through the 50, the 21 starting to. So to me, this is very intriguing. at the 100 level. I'm thinking that, this one, Palantir and Netflix and MicroStrategy and Robinhood, and there's quite a few of them. I'm getting there. I'm getting to them. But yeah, those have signs of potential leadership. Obviously, CrowdStrike, cybersecurity is an essential. What's the matter with CrowdStrike? Well, it's above its moving average, which is great, but the 10 is still below the 50. So you want to see that 10 and the 21 above the 50 and have this thing headed, above 400. It looks good to me. The only thing, today it closed 24% of the daily range, like a lot of the tech stocks, gapped higher at the open. Looks like a little bit of short covering with the announcement from the White House last night about tariffs and Jerome Powell. Think you saw some shorts panic at the open and they just covered their bets and then, selling, profit taking into the close. But still a constructive day for CrowdStrike and for the stock market. Another one that I like, well, I like a lot of these, Fortinet and Okta, Zscaler, but I like Rubrik. This one is showing good action here above the 50. What's wrong with it? Well, the 10 is below the 21, and the 21 and the 10 are below the 50. So it has a lot of work to do. You can see this double bottom base, and Mike's got the 76.11 standard buy point. I wouldn't wait for that. Personally, I would say that, if I wanted to own Rubrik and think they're going to have strong earnings and taking market share and a long-term holder, and I wanted a decent price, I would say on Tuesday, this thing traded above its, downtrend line, and today popped above it. Now it's above its 50. So this is getting more intriguing for me, but has to show, some leadership, some follow through, some, drive higher with volume. The last couple of days got decent volume. So the cybersecurity space is essential in today's world. So I'm definitely looking at these stocks. 32 out of 197. So that's respectable. Definitely top 40 is always good. All right. I mentioned some of the names that I think could be leadership, and you can't count out cryptocurrency at all. And MicroStrategy, the problem I have with this is it's too levered to Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin, flops around all over the place, whereas Robinhood is more tethered to its platform and its services and its offerings. It's very innovative brokerage, the most innovative brokerage. But MicroStrategy here traded at 355 today. It's a little extended here, 8% above the 10, but still 340, 359. If it just, traded sideways there around 345, 350, that would be fine. Let me see here. Closed today, yeah, 8.8%, 12% above the 21. So that's getting extended. But this is what I was talking about with the prior stocks, is this one's got the 10 and the 21 stacked above the 50. So this is looking to me like it wants to be a leader and trade higher. And I don't see why it can't get back up to, 404, that 404 level, or at least 400, and see how it can do once it gets there. But I think just based on these moving averages and the way this is acting, that it could possibly do that. Robinhood, I mentioned this one, possible leader, of course. This one moved higher today, but then yeah, 47.22 at the open, then sold off like everything else. Like I said, it just looked like some shorts panic there on the news from last night. And this is why you wait. You don't jump in the first 25 minutes, buy it at 47.22, and then, an hour later you're going, I suck. I bought it too high. Yeah, you did, because you didn't wait. To me, this is still, in a buy range here above that 50 of 45.16. It closed 1.1% below it, so it still has work to do. Short-term moving averages are below it, so it still has work to do. But give them time. These things aren't going to be, just ripping higher because you bought them. You got to show some patience. Like I said, over time, especially the monthly here. I mean, each month now, finally, it's up 7% this month after falling the last couple of months, 3%, and then had a brutal March down 17%, getting some of that back now. So just give it some time. Take a look at all time frames here on these charts. This is just forming a base here, and it's just, forming the right side of this base. So give it time. I think, allow it to announce earnings next week. If you own it, I'm going to hold it into earnings because, gosh, the way the stocks have been responding to earnings. I think they're going to have a strong earnings report, and I think that will be rewarded. If not, then I lose and I sell, but I want to hold this thing longer term. All right, the other one is Coinbase. I'm not as thrilled about Coinbase as some others. Obviously, Robinhood is stronger. This one closed 14% below the 200, 3% below the 50 there. So it looks like it just traded up to the 50 and got rejected. We saw a few stocks looking like that. So not leadership potential in my humble opinion. All right, I'm talking about stocks that are above their moving averages. Why? Why are these biotech stocks showing so much strength? This is WGS, a nice move today of 9%. Thank you very much. Yeah, it undercut its 50 weakness with the rest of the market, on that April 4th day, then rallied up on April, that's got to be April 9th, 13%. Yeah, pulled back to the 50, found support, and now 12.5% above the 50. So WGS having a nice week, up 11%. You could see the base here, the pullback, and now it's forming another little base. So WGS reports next week, next Wednesday. So we got to wait to hear from them. ADMA, I was reading up on these guys. They are just a US company, right? So the tariffs don't apply to them. They manufacture their drugs here, they sell their drugs here. Everything's done within the United States. And you can see the powerful sales growth numbers, the earnings growth numbers. Cup with handle pattern. Yeah, it closed near the lows of the session. Big deal. Not the end of the world. You can see it's just forming this base here like it did back here. You'd like to see it do something like this, like it did in 2024. And maybe that will happen. You just have to be patient. But if you're just talking on a daily basis, I mean, it's 5.1% above the 10. How many stocks have 59% sales growth trading 5% above their 10 or 18% above their 50? I could tell you there's a very small list. TGTX is another one of these drug stocks. Why is this one? Let me see. What are we looking at here? 3.5% above its 10, 8.5% above its 50. This one's showing great strength. When the market sold off, yeah, it went from 43 to 31. That's a bummer. But it, undercut the 50 and rallied right back above. And look at, the moving averages here, the 10 and the 21 are right next to each other. They're converging well above the 50. So that to me is a sign of strength. Yeah, 3.6 and 3.7 there on the 10 and the 21. To me, this is a no-brainer stock. They're going to crush earnings. And yeah, it's my biggest long or my longest hold or something of both, right? Anyway, the other one I wanted to point out is SLNO. This is a speculative play because they don't have sales. They have an approval. They're bringing their drug to market, and I better read up on them because they're supposed to start selling it this month, and they might have already started, but it made a new high today. So stocks making new highs, obviously. You see the 10, that's what I'm talking about here with the moving averages. The 10, the 21, the 50, all stacked. Looks like a gold stock. But yeah, you can't ignore stuff like that. This is they're screaming at to me, they're screaming at you saying, there's something going on here. They're making new highs, and while the market was selling off, this thing was kind of ramping higher, from 43 to 74. Thank you very much. So, anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching. I'm still, going to be monitoring leading stocks. So I'm going to be posting some of my screens in the morning, just so you're aware of what stocks are showing relative strength on a daily basis. I like stocks above their moving averages. I like strength. I don't like buying stuff, that's downtrodden, bent, it's probably NVO here. I shouldn't pick on it, but it's probably a safer risk reward here, depending upon your time frame. I mentioned this yesterday. If I'm a young kid and I've got nothing but time, yeah, plunk some money down here. It's probably not going much lower, and it has a great chance to go way higher. You can see this stage 4 decline. It's not going to be in a stage 4 decline forever. It's going to, stabilize, balance out, make a base, and it's going to trade higher. It's just too good of a company, too much growth in it for it to be, floundering here around 60 bucks. Anyway, that's my point. I like buying strength, and I don't like buying stocks with, it's not a leader. You're looking for leadership. This is not a leader in the drug space. Lilly, not a leader either. This thing's disappointing me, big time. And so is Hims. This is supposed to be, a stock with a bunch of growth, but I think it's got real trouble with the bigger fish with Novo and Eli Lilly. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. A lot of people will disagree with me because they think it's going to 1,000, but that's what makes a market. All right. Thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up, except for an on to the great Steve Jobs. I have a couple of things to mention tonight with earnings, and that is ServiceNow reported tonight. McDermott was talking about, the change of administrations and some of the changes he's seeing with other countries and companies in other countries. And yeah, of course, he's a global, it's a global business, so he doesn't want to just, be tied to one country, America. So it's kind of awkward for, some of these companies, but they will figure it out. And it was up 6% during the session today and up another 10% after hours, another $78 pop. So I expect the software names, this is 168 billion market cap, not no small company. So I'm expecting, stocks like Palantir and some of these other software names to follow through with the service now tomorrow. Anyway, I shouldn't do that. I should go back to IBM because IBM's down 4%. They had a good quarter. I don't know what they said on the conference call, but the quarter was very good. And the CEO was talking about how HashiCorp is this is the first quarter they included HashiCorp numbers, and they're showing a lot of growth with their acquisition of HashiCorp. So I don't know. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Like ISRG was down 5% after hours yesterday. And you get some of these wonky moves around earnings reports. So I wouldn't give up on IBM. I have to read more into it though, because something might have been said on the call. But the press release was fantastic report. Earnings beat, very strong. IBM, good leader. The CEO got this company in gear. How do I know? Well, when Romney left, when did she leave? I don't know, 2021. This thing's been straight up since she left. And so the CEO is doing a good job. Anyway, I'm going to move on to, well, where am I going here? Okay, I'll go to Texas Instrument and keep it in the tech sector. This is a semiconductor play, very strong earnings report, very good guidance. Yeah, it's been beat to hell. And this is what I'm talking about with earnings reports. The multiples were contracting and bad news was priced in. And that's what Wall Street does when there's uncertainty. They shoot first and ask questions later. And that's what they did. They just sold everything. And now they hear the data points from these companies. And if they're good, or even in Tesla's case, even not so good, they're going to be rewarded just because of there's clarity now. The uncertainty is taken out of the equation. And so now they can buy these with more clarity on what to expect from this company going forward. Texas Instrument up 5% after hours. This is good for tech also. This is 138 billion market cap stock. This is not a small company. So that is good. Lam Research with a good report, up nearly 4%. Once again, 85 billion market cap, semiconductor equipment stock. Yeah, it's below its moving averages, but the report should help, and then 4% move could turn into a 5 or 10 or 20% move and get back above these moving averages here if the market cooperates and we get that rally that I'm expecting. Okay, I mentioned the miners earlier, and Newmont Mining reported they reported stellar numbers, just blowout quarter. Not even, I think they almost doubled. Like, I don't know, the expectation was like 70 cents and they came with $1.40 earnings, something like that. I'll have it in the morning. But just blowout quarter on revenues and earnings. It's only up, 1.6%. These aren't software names that, trade after hours a lot, but we'll see what happens with these tomorrow. I think gold was still down in after hours, but a strong quarter, and that's all companies can do is report strong quarters. And you can see that this thing's just forming a base here, a nice cup shape pattern here. The earnings line heading due north, and this is going to help tomorrow. So very nice quarter from Newmont. And the last one that I saw tonight, well, there was a couple more. One was Chipotle, the Mexican grill. And what happened here was I think their sales and earnings were okay, but their same source sales was way down. So the foot traffic, that's a little concerning. I don't know if that says more about the economy or just, focused on Chipotle itself. And that maybe some companies are taking market share. I got to tell you, I went to Dutch Bros today and they're selling sliders and hot food. So I'm more of a Dutch Bros man than Chipotle at 66 billion. And when they had their 50 for one stock split, it just kind of it skewed everything. It made their this right here, which is their float. This is what I look for in companies. Big floats are hard to move. And so, yeah, Chipotle is probably going to be, a laggard for a long, long time. Anyway, Las Vegas Sands reported not a great number, but like I said, it got some clarity and it's just flat after hours. I think they missed on the top and the bottom line and not doing much, but that's okay. We'll see what happens tomorrow. All right. And then in the morning, got some airline stocks. Southwest Airlines reports, AAL reports. Alaska either reported tonight or tomorrow. They reported tonight, I guess. Yeah, 23, up a 0.5%. I'll have more on that in the morning. SCX, another minor reports in the morning. Looking forward to that. Merck needs to buy some growth. Some of these smaller biotech names, these big market cap tech, big pharma, they have patent cliffs, they have no growth, they have to start buying. And now that we got rid of Dr. No, I'm expecting a big year for M&A from big pharma, but it hasn't happened yet. And so Bristol Myers had a failed trial yesterday. They need to buy something. Pfizer needs to buy something. These big pharma companies have no growth. Their pipelines are being depleted. They need to buy, and I'm expecting it either this year or next year as the patent cliff becomes closer and closer. All right, I'm going to get off my soapbox there and go to Pepsi. They report in the morning. This is an old steady Eddie. I mean, you just can't go wrong. It's got the oops, that's the monthly. You can see, yeah, big time move here for Pepsi, but it pays you nearly 4% to hold it. It's what I would call, a widow's stock. You just hold on to it and collect the dividends and do a drip system and hold it forever and ever and bequeath it to your family. That's that type of stock, kind of like Coca-Cola. And then Valero, these oil stocks, I'm not expecting much from them. Oil's way down around 60 bucks, 62 bucks. But this is a refiner that reports in the morning. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Don't get discouraged. You should be encouraged with the action from the index, even though, it's a little disheartening that it closed, near the lows today. But we're starting to push away from this low here. And like I said, just look for that index to get above 17,202 and look for it to trade above and close above the 21 here, this magenta line. I think it can do it. You can do it, buddy. But anyway, one day at a time, folks. Just don't get down to being negative doesn't help anybody, and panicking doesn't help anybody. You have to be in it to win it. And think positive, be positive. Positive things happen to positive people. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Have a great evening. Thank you for watching. Never give up.